Since we do have panelists and our panelists are well established political leaders and who are aware of this particular issue, I'll just highlight how these legislations are made and what is the design of this legislation. Because too much has been spoken about this legislation. While the farmers are up in their arms, crores of people are marching towards Delhi and striking for the last so many days or so many months. But still, the government is not relenting, and the government is saying these particular legislations are meant for the benefit of the farmers. So, what is the truth? Whether the government is telling the truth or whether the farmers are really affected by this, which is the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services 2020, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020, the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020, which amends the Essential Commodities Act 1955. The confusion here is the confusion or the question here is the first two bills deal with farmers. But what is that the third bill which deals with farmers? Why this third bill is being introduced? Is it a systematic design to create some confusion, or is it a systematic design to help any corporates or anybody? That is what the whole issue here. As we are all know, and also pointed out by our learned MB and also Mr. Kumaresan, agriculture is a state subject. Under the Constitution of India, subjects are divided into three. That is the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. The union list is the area where the union government is empowered to legislate and take actions. And state list is the area where the state governments are empowered to legislate and take actions. There is also another list called concurrent list, where both the state government and also the union government can legislate. However, any legislation made by the union parliament will prevail over the state legislature. Incidentally, agriculture is a state list. So for example, when we talk about union list, there are many things like defense, external affairs. These will come under the union list because the country as united, because unitedly have to take decisions on these particular subjects. Whereas, why something is given to the state as state list? The main reason is state lists are the areas which are all determined to suit the needs of the local people in the state, like agriculture or minerals, minor minerals, say for example, law and order, which concern and affects the rights of the local people. Why? How come this agriculture affects the rights of the local people? Because India is an agrarian society. However, as far as India is concerned, there is a difference between Indian farmers and the farmers in US or the farmers in Europe. The farmers in Europe or farmers in US are large-scale farmers, which are all corporates. Whereas India depends upon the farmers who are all small-time farmers, who have land holdings of maybe 50 cents, 1 acre or 2 acre, and who will have livelihood of only 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees per annum. And secondly, why it is a local issue? Right to food is a fundamental right, or right to food is considered to be part of right to life. A farmer farms potatoes or tomatoes or maybe whatever the farm produce. This farm produce primarily have to be sold or given to the local people over there because they dependent on their livelihood for food. And it cannot be taken to faraway places. If it is allowed to take into faraway places, that will lead to hoarding. Hence, the concept of mandis were created. The purpose of mandis means what we call it as chandehal. The mandis were created wherein the farmers can go to the mandis and sell it to the local people. For example, suppose a farmer is cultivating some tomatoes in Nagarkoil. He cannot even take the tomato to Tirunelveli because he cannot afford to the transportation cost. He cannot store that tomatoes. So necessarily he has to go and sell it in the mandi only in Nagarkoil. So in order to prevent the exploitation of the farmer in the mandi, the government has came up with some safety net measures called minimum support price in the mandi. So when somebody is buying it, or when a trader is coming and buying from the mandi, the farmer can insist for the minimum support price. This is a guaranteed safety net given to the farmers. So only with this objective in mind, there are three things which government insisted all along. One is the minimum support price. The second one is the establishment of mandis. The third one is the prevention of hoardings through Essential Commodities Act. Because if hoardings are allowed, or maybe if hoardings are allowed, then the corporates can store the materials, create an artificial scarcity, then resell it the same product for a higher price. This will not only affect the farmers but affect the general public. Now, the government is coming up with a new concept to eliminate all these three. That is, they want to eliminate the mandis, they want to eliminate the minimum support price, they also want to promote hoarding. Why? Only with these three distinct legislations are passed. The farmers' first legislation, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill 2020. What it says, it allows for contract farming. The government says, I don't care about this, though they don't say that, but their attitude is like that. Even if there is not an MSP, MSP is embedded in this particular legislation. How? When a corporate comes, the corporate can enter into an agreement with the farmer, a pre-agreement for 5 years or 10 years or whatever for the time period, wherein the farmer will produce these potatoes for a distinct number of years for a particular price. Suppose, for example, the corporate agrees that 1 kilo of potato will be procured at rupees 100 after say 6 months time when the potatoes are grown at a particular time. And this contract farming method, they will insist for say 5 years or 10 years, whatever. The farmer is also happy because he is getting rupees 100 for this particular potato. But what it says, as Mr. Kumarasan rightly pointed out, there is a question of bargaining. A farmer who is illiterate, here the small-time farmers are mostly illiterates, he cannot draft the terms and conditions on an agreement which are all equal in terms. Even assuming that if it is drafted equally, let us assume that even the small-time farmer goes to a lawyer, drafts an agreement equally, and agrees to sell his potatoes for rupees 100 at the end of 6 months. After 6 months, assuming if the corporates come back to him and say, I agreed for rupees 100, but your potato is of not the quality which you assured. Now what, I cannot pay you 100 rupees, I'll be able to pay only 10 rupees. What the farmer can do? The farmer can only go to a dispute settlement mechanism under this particular act. What is a dispute settlement mechanism? It is nothing but a form of conciliation. Conciliation means ottidirpu. And if nothing happens in 30 days, then the farmer can go to the subdivisional magistrate, that is a sub-collector, and prove that his potato is of good quality and he needs 100 rupees. How is it possible? The potato will get rotten within 4 to 5 days. The farmer cannot keep the potato for 30-35 days and go to the subdivisional magistrate. And which dispute settlement mechanism in this country, whether it is courts or arbitration or anything, is so fast enough to get over in 4 or 5 months' time? It is not at all, virtually not possible, which means this dispute settlement mechanism under this particular act is meaningless and is unfavorable to the particular corporates. And what the farmer will do, the farmer will have no other option but to sell his produce only for that rupees 10 or 5, whatever is being demanded by the corporates. This is a trap. The next one is abolition of mandis. Why they are abolishing mandis? Right now, this has to be read along with the mandi abolition, along with the Essential Commodities Act. Earlier, under the Essential Commodities Act, prevents hoarding of any essential products like onions or potatoes or maybe whatever the essential produces by any corporate. Because when it leads to hoarding, it also leads to scarcity. When it leads to scarcity, there will be price rise. But the present Essential Commodities Act states the government cannot interfere in such type of things unless under certain exceptional circumstances. What are those exceptional circumstances? That is, which includes war, famine, extraordinary price rise, and natural calamity of grave order. So unless such situations arise, the government cannot interfere, which means companies like Adani or Ambani can hoard materials at their whims and fancies till the time the government interferes. And what is a price rise? Price rise means, assuming what it says is, government can interfere in limiting the stock only if there is a 100% increase in retail price of the horticulture produce or 50% increase in the retail price of the non-perishable agricultural foodstuffs. Which means, assuming if the price of a tomato is rupees 100 per kilo, the government can interfere only if the hoarding happens and the price has increased to beyond 200. That is, only the government will be able to interfere when it touches 200. That means the corporates can still hold and sell these producers at 199 rupees when the government cannot interfere. Thus, the whole scheme of the act is to help only the farming companies or maybe the Adanis or Ambanis, as rightly pointed out by our learned member of parliament. And they systematically abolished all these three items. One is the mandis and the contract farming, that is taking away the minimum support price. And also, this is the only government which has permitted anyone to hold the products with a view to help the corporates. If this continues, corporates will be at an upper hand, and finally, farmers will not be able to get the price for the produce, but ultimately, the farmers will also end up in selling their lands to these corporates, which leads to neo-colonization.